UDO, how does it fit into the city's plans?
Well, really, this grew out of the council's visioning process, and this slide articulates that vision. And this is the goal that we establish as staff. And when we go out there and put together our work plan, we start with the council's vision, missions, and what objectives they give us on an annual basis. This one we've had out there for quite a while, and it's really about creating a great place to live. And as you can see on this slide, there's 4 key phrases. And on the following slides, what we've done is we've provided the detail under each one of those, because the council went to the next step. Not only did they provide you that vision, but they actually provided detailed objectives underneath that. For example, in the area of desirable neighborhoods, when they talk about desirable neighborhoods in their vision, what they're really looking for is well-planned and well-designed neighborhoods. Out of that, there are a number of specific pieces that come forward in the UDO. For example, our design standards about how to place garages and how to vary facades and things of that nature are really about trying to get, again, well-planned, attractive, and desirable neighborhoods in our community that are sustainable. And I have some more perspective on that later in the presentation. Beauty by design, again, this is another vision statement that they talk about. They provide us detail about tree preservation, and that's why we have some tree preservation language in the ordinance. We have a new clear-cutting permit that requires development to come to the city and talk to us before they go out and completely clear their lot. That's a brand new process. We have reduced the requirements for tree preservation below where we initially started as part of a compromise. Again, this has to be a document that's not only makes some progress on the sustainability side and livability side, but also is something that is acceptable to our business community as well. So these 2 slides kind of summarize in more detail what the council told us to go try and accomplish through this document. So as we review the document, we try to use this as our touchstone to balance whether we've been successful or not.
Well, let's look into the details of some of the most important elements of the UDO. If you wouldn't mind, can you start describing the new review processes and information that are required and the things that motivated these changes?
Well, of course, what we're looking for as staff is that we had to implement these new regulations and successfully. In order to do that, you got to have some information. You know, it's hard to tell somebody whether they're doing the right thing in a project if you don't really know what they're doing. So we've actually added some specific requirements, and the first one of that is what we call a TIA, or Traffic Impact Analysis. Our current code allows the city engineer to require a TIA, but the standards for doing so are fairly ambiguous, and the reality is we almost never required one. So lots of times when we bring a new project to the council and they'd ask, what's the impact of this on the traffic basis? We just didn't have the data to answer the question. So now we've made that requirement more specific. We've detailed when it's required. And so the development community should have greater predictability, and we should have greater access to information. The challenge here, of course, is that does provide some additional upfront costs for development. But I think it's only a fair way to move through the process, because we've in the past asked council to make decisions that had ramifications and impacts they weren't even aware of. We couldn't answer the question. When they asked, how is this going to impact this intersection? We just didn't know. This should address that. More of the processes now require specific site plans. So as before, they could sort of give us an idea or give us very little information. Now we're actually asking for site plans. The trade-off for that is that because we're getting site plans at this step in the process, we've increased a number of uses that are permitted without going through a special use process. So there are more processes that are allowed from an administrative review of the site plan rather than going to the council or the planning commission through a more complex process. So it's a little bit of a quid pro quo. We've created some new administrative review and flexibility standards. So if you have a situation where the rule doesn't fit a piece of property, administratively we can flex that rule by about 10%. So we don't break the rules, we bend them a little bit in order to try to succeed in both fulfilling our regulatory goal, but allowing business to move forward or development to move forward in a way that's sensitive to that goal as well. We've provided some new processes, alternative plans, that'll give us an opportunity to do things that are out of the box. So while we've tried to anticipate most of the standard kinds of development we're going to see, if someone has a new idea, we didn't want to close the door to it. So we've created alternative parking plans, alternative landscaping plans, and planned unit developments to allow people to bring us new ideas, take a look at that, compare it to the goals we're trying to accomplish, and see if we can meet both objectives. And then, again, as I mentioned earlier, we've got this new clear cutting permit, which is a brand new process specific to allowing us to meet that standard with regard to protecting trees in development areas.
The other night when you gave the presentation, when we talked about specific zoning districts, I noticed a lot of people everyone was paying attention, but they